When Miss Emily Grushin died, our whole town went to her funeral. The men through a sort of respectful affection for a fallen monument. The women mostly out of curiosity to see the inside of her house, which no one save an old manservant, a combined gardener and cook, has seen it at least 10 years. It was a big square-frame house that had once been white, decorated with cupolas and spires, and scrolled balconies in the heavily lightsome style of the 70s, set on what had once been our most select street. But garages and congens had encroached and obliterated even the august names of that neighborhood. Only Miss Emily's house was left, lifting its stubborn and coquettish decay above the cotton wagons and the gasoline pumps, an eyesore among eyesores. Live Miss Emily had been a tradition, a duty, and a care, a sort of hereditary obligation upon the town, dating from that day in 1894, when Colonel Sartoris, the mayor, who had followed the edict that no Negro woman should appear on the streets without an apron, remitted her taxes, the dispensation dating from the death of her father on into perpetuity. Not that Miss Emily would have accepted charity. Colonel Sartoris invented an involved tale to the effect that Miss Emily's father had loaned money to the town, which the town, as a matter of business, preferred this way of repaying.
I have no taxes in Jefferson. Colonel Sartoris explained it to me, so perhaps one of you can gain access to the city records and satisfy yourselves.
But we have. We're the city authorities, Miss Emily. Didn't you get a notice from the signed by him?
I received a paper, yes. Perhaps he considers himself the sheriff. I have no taxes in Jefferson.
But there's nothing on the books to show that you see. We must go by the...
See Colonel Sartoris. I have no taxes in Jefferson.
But Miss Emily...
No, see Colonel Sartoris. I have no taxes in Jefferson. Toby, escort them out.
So she vanquished them, horse and foot, just as she had vanquished their fathers 30 years before about the smell. That was 2 years after her father's death, and a short time after her sweetheart, the one we believe would marry her, had deserted her. After her father's death, she went out very little. After her sweetheart went away, people hardly saw her at all. A few of the ladies had the temerity to call, but were not received, and the only sign of life about the place was the Negro man, a young man then, going in and out with a market basket.
Why? Send her word to stop it. Isn't there a law?
I'm sure that won't be necessary. It's probably just a snake or a rat that Negro of hers killed in the yard. I'll speak to him about it.
It's simple enough. Send her word to have her place cleaned up. Give her a certain time to do it in.
Damn it, sir! Will you accuse a lady to her face of smelling bad?
Oh, God! Oh, my God!
So the next night, after midnight, 4 men crossed Miss Emily's lawn and slunk about the house like burglars, sniffling along the base of the brickwork and at the cellar openings while one of them performed a regular sewing motion with his hands out of a sack slung from his shoulder. They broke open the cellar door and sprinkled lime there and in all the outbuildings. As they recrossed the lawn, a window that had been dark was lighted, and Miss Emily sat in it. She was sick for a long time. When we saw her again, her hair was cut short, making her look like a girl, with a vague resemblance to those angels in colored church windows, sort of tragic and serene. She carried her head high enough, even when we believed that she was fallen. It was as if she demanded more than ever the recognition of her dignity as Elias Grierson, as if had wanted that touch of earthliness to reaffirm her imperviousness, like when we bought the rat poison, the arsenic. That was over a year after they had begun to say, "Poor Emily."
I want some poison.
Yes, Miss Emily. What kind? For rats and such? I'd recommend.
I want the best you have. I don't care what kind.
They kill anything up to an elephant. But what you want
Arsenic. Is that a good one?
is arsenic? Yes, ma'am. But what do you want?
I want arsenic.
Why, of course. if that's what you want, but the law requires you to tell me what you're going to use it for.
For rats. Daily, monthly, yearly, we watched the Negro grow grayer and more stooped, going in and out with the market basket. Each December we sent her a tax notice, which would be returned by the post office a week later unclaimed. Now and then we would see her in the front of downstairs windows, and had evidently shut up the top floor of the house, like the carven torso of an idol in a niche. Looking or not looking at us, we could never tell which. Thus she passed from generation to generation, dear, inescapable, impervious, tranquil, and perverse. And so she died, fell ill in the house filled with dust and shadows, with only a doddering Negro man to wait on her. Already we knew that there was one room in that region above stairs which no one had seen in 40 years, and which would have to be forced. The violence of breaking the door seemed to fill this room with pervading dust. A thin, acrid pale, as of the tomb, seemed to lie everywhere upon this room, decked and furnished as for a bridal. The man himself lay in the bed. For a long while we stood there, just looking down at the profound and fleshless grin. The body had apparently once lain in the attitude of an embrace, but now the long sleep that at last love, that conquers even the grimmest love, had cocooned him. Then we noticed that in the second pillow was the attendance of a head. One of us lifted something from it, and leaning forward, that faint and invisible dust dry and acrid in the nostrils, we saw a long strand of iron gray hair.